Hello and welcome to our first episode in our CCRF mini-series. Today our topic is photos during chemo, to take or not to take. My name is Mindy. I'm a community outreach coordinator for Children's Cancer Research Fund. I was introduced to the world of childhood cancer 13 years ago when our 6-week-old son was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I have been with CCRF in this position for over 8 years now. I get to meet amazing people. And today I want to introduce you to Katrina, who is a great friend, a colleague, and also a cancer survivor. Katrina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Mindy. You're so welcome. I love seeing you. I miss our time in the office together. We're all working remote right now, and we don't work 10 feet apart, and it's so sad.
It is. We're trying to make it work, right?
We are.
Work. So tell me about what you do at CCRF and a little bit about your journey that got you connected to the world of childhood cancer.
Yeah, so I am a major gift officer at CCRF, which means I work with families and individuals who want to make a difference with their philanthropy, and they want to make a difference through Children's Cancer Research Fund. So I get to align their passions and their goals within their family with projects that CCRF is trying to fund and needs to fund, and we need their help. So I love my job. I get to meet wonderful people who are incredibly generous and thoughtful and care deeply about this really underserved population. And I am a childhood cancer survivor. As Mindy said, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 17 years old. I was a junior in high school and a 3-sport athlete, as healthy as you could be. And then overnight I wasn't, and I got really, really sick. And thankfully, due to people 10 to 20 to 30 years ago investing in childhood cancer research and believing in the importance of research, I'm here today. My doctor very clearly shared if I were diagnosed in the 80s, I likely would not be here today. So I'm here because of research, and I'm here because of people believing in the mission of childhood cancer research and CCRF.
Oh, I'm so happy about your survivorship, and we're so lucky to have you because you get it. And it was just so beautifully said. Like it takes research, and we're lucky to have you. So thank you for all you do for us. And so we're going to get right to this. We're going to talk about this, photos during chemo, to take or not to take. And I mean, that's the question, right? So to reiterate, you were 17.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was 17. I'm pretty sure. Well, there weren't social media sites, and there weren't cell phones with selfies. So I think it's even more important for us to have this conversation now. So
agree.
So tell me about that. Tell me about some of your experiences with that, and whatever else you want to sprinkle in with it that comes to mind, feel free to share with us.
Yeah, so again, like Mindy said, I was 17, and it was just the start of really documenting, I think, every single moment of your life with either cell phone. We had digital cameras back then. That was really important for all of my friends and I to have digital cameras to capture everything. And when I got sick, it was so clear to me that I just wanted to be better. Like, I just didn't want to be the girl at high school who had cancer. I grew up in a really small town, so I was on the front page of the newspaper. Like, there were just so many areas for recognition and people wanting to support my family and come in with the very best intentions of wanting to support us and support me and learn more about childhood cancer and why I was sick and what was going on. But oftentimes that came with wanting to document it. And again, I didn't want to be the girl with cancer. I didn't want to be this poster child for cancer. I knew I looked so sick. I could see myself in the mirror. I saw my hair fall out. I saw my eyebrows fall out. I saw my eyelashes fall out. Like, I just didn't want to be remembered in that way. And as a 17-year-old, I didn't have the gift of time or adulthood or a fully formed prefrontal cortex to know that I wasn't going to be remembered in this way, and I wasn't going to be remembered as this girl who had cancer. But when I was 17, it really felt like this was it. So I did everything I could to avoid having photos taken. I yelled at my parents. I yelled at my siblings. I got so upset because people were taking my photo and asking for, well, sometimes not even asking. They were taking my photo and or taking pictures of me without my permission. And again, at that time, as many people can understand, when you go through something like this, you lose control of a lot of things that you once had some agency over. So I was 17. I had just gotten my license. I had a job. I had a boyfriend. I babysat. I had this incredible life and felt like I really was becoming an adult. And then as cancer came into the story, it just regressed. I couldn't do what I wanted. I couldn't be with my friends all of the time. My life was dictated by a 21-day schedule and chemotherapy days 1 through 6, and then a blood transfusion on day 14 like clockwork. And I just lost control. And one thing that I could control is people taking photos. And I really didn't want anyone to capture any of that time in my life. One person who was a really great advocate for me in that time was my mom. And we had great conversations about Katrina. She would ask, like, Katrina, are you sure you don't want to remember this? I think you're going to want to remember it someday. And I think you'll want to look back and be able to see how far you've come and how healthy you are. And really at the moment, I always said no. I always said, absolutely not. I don't want that. And I don't want to have these photos because I don't want to remember this really hard and difficult and sad time in my life. And although she thought I was wrong and thought that I should have these photos and wished that I would have been more compliant, she listened and she was an advocate, and she chewed other people out when they took photos of me, or she was such an advocate and on my team in recognizing, no, she doesn't want her photo taken, and that's okay. And it's, guess what, her choice. Nothing else in her life right now is her choice, and she can control and have some agency over this.
Well, and I think it too, so a couple of things come to mind that I want to follow up on from what you said, but I think too, from, obviously I'm not a childhood cancer survivor, so I can't relate from that perspective, but from the caregiver perspective, if there is something that you can do to advocate for your child, mm-hmm. even if, like you said, she didn't necessarily agree with it, we're on it. Like, yep. That is our focus. We're going to be like, like full armor, like this isn't happening. When you were talking about when you started to lose your hair and yeah. brows and stuff, like how does that affect, and you related it, to why you wouldn't want it to have, your picture taken. But when you had mentioned, you looked in the mirror, like, what did you see? Like, how distorted was it from what you had seen before, or what you pictured before? Because how everyone says we can't see ourselves. It's impossible. We only see a reflection of ourselves. We can't ever see somebody the way they see us. And even personality-wise, there's different lenses that we see things. But like, how drastically different? Like, what was that like?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I remember being in our high school, and there was this middle staircase that separated the floors that everyone walked up and down. And when I was sick, it took all of my energy to get from the first floor up to the third floor, but I was never going to take the elevator because I was very prideful and stubborn. So I would walk up the stairs, and in the hallway, there were these mirrors everywhere. So as I was walking up the stairs in my high school, I would catch glimpses of myself. And in the high school, I felt like I was the same person on the inside. I was still myself. I was still on teams and still a student and still, I was still me. But when I saw myself in the mirror, it didn't match the person that I thought I was. And it was so strange and caught me off guard. I don't think I ever got used to seeing myself looking so sick, because although I felt terrible and I was tired and I physically was just worn out from chemo and treatments, mentally I still felt like me, and I still felt like Katrina, the free sport athlete, barista at the local coffee shop, honor roll student. Like I didn't feel like those things had changed, but physically I just looked so different, and I could tell I was different too, because people looked at me and they looked at me and they had those. I mean, I think anyone who's been in this situation can understand the heart dropping, sinking eyes of when someone catches a kid with cancer in their gaze. And yeah, I knew I was sick, and everyone knew I was sick. And when I saw myself in the mirror, it was just another reminder. And reinforced this idea back to taking photos that I didn't want to be remembered this way, and I didn't want to remember this part of my life. Now I look back as a almost 30-year-old and thinking back to that time, and of course I wish I had more photos, and of course I wish I would have been willing to be filmed and documented, in that piece of my life documented, but I wouldn't change it. I think the agency that my mom gave and encouraged me to have, of being able to take control of this piece of my life, was important. And although I wish I had those photos now, not more than I am grateful for it to be able to have the agency at that time.
I think there's so much in that, and I'm glad you said that you know, that you let us know, like, sure, yeah, there's pictures maybe I wish I had, because you did, you know, go through this tremendous life-changing experience. But I also think, and first of all, who's putting mirrors in high school hallways?
Right. I don't know.
Because we have enough going on with self-image as a teenager, heck, as an adult.
Yep.
Anyway,
an added mirror in every hallway is just not necessary.
But I really think it's important to talk about, like, how that reflection essentially fed you information that wasn't helpful.
Mm-hmm.
As encouraging as, I'm still on the same teams, I'm still the same Katrina, I still have the same friends, I still have the same favorite foods, like, I'm still me. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it's another topic maybe for another time, about how, you know, we love, as our organization, sharing stories and sharing photos,
Mm-hmm.
but how careful to navigate that with the child, even if it's a discussion of, you don't have to see these.
Mm-hmm.
See these later. If you're comfortable with us taking it, you can see these later, or maybe you want to see them now. But I don't know that anyone, I honestly believe this is the first time I've delved in that part of the conversation of how that it could affect them emotionally and psychologically when you see how sick you really are, and how it does just replicate those responses you get people when they are being sincere, and they need and they have the sad eyes and they have that heavy heart because they love you so much. But when that's what you are seeing, man, we need a power through. You know, you guys, we can all do it. You can smile and the tears still roll down, and because who wants to look at frowny, sad faces?
Right.
I'm like, oh, Katrina, that's so much to process. That's a lot. Thank you for sharing that, because that's, you know, those are intimate, you know, very, very moments, and I think we have a lot that we can learn from that, honestly. And that's why we're doing this and having these conversations. We want people to be inspired to even just, you know, consider some new thoughts, or even be able to relate and be like, yeah, I get that. You know, I'm that person. I know how I can show up for them. And that leads me to my next question. So if people are looking to support survivors like you, what should they do? How should they get involved? And then maybe it starts simply as smiling more than frowning them, right? If you have a friend, family member that is in the middle of treatment. But what are some of your ideas on that?
Yeah, great question. I think something that I always appreciated, and I think something that we at CCRF do well, kind of what you were pointing to earlier, Mindy, is asking permission for stories to be told and asking permission to even have a conversation. I think everyone gets really curious when they see a really sick kid, and they want to know what's going on, and they want to know what they can do to help. And it comes from a good place, but I think just taking a moment to pause and think, maybe this person doesn't want to have the 17th conversation about why they're sick and why they're bald and why they're in a wheelchair and why they've got a portacath coming out of their chest.
Right.
So I think just maybe taking a second to pause and think, is this the proper place to have this conversation? And then number two, asking permission of the person. Can I ask you a question? Is this an okay time for me to ask you a question? Or are you comfortable talking about what's going on with your health experience, journey, story, however you want to phrase it, is huge. And then just to be able to listen, and I think use some social and emotional cues is really important. And it takes time, and that takes practice to be able to figure that out. But I think you can tell when someone's uncomfortable and not willing to go into that kind of a conversation. So just be willing to A, open up a conversation, but B, recognize that maybe it's not a great time, even if the person says, yeah, sure, I guess we could talk about it if you want.
Right. Right. Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up too, because there's this opportunity that are you gathering information for your own curiosity?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you gathering information for a true connection, a way,
Right.
You're looking for a way you can help them. And I think that's important. And I know it can be a sensitive topic in the very world that we typically live in. Now we're all, doing it from safe distancing and behind screens and whatnot. But I think that's really important. And I like what you said about, no, it's not necessarily natural or easy. And you have to pause, and you have to practice pause. Like, what am I looking to gain out of this conversation? And picking up on those emotional and social clues, I think, is super huge and helpful. Thank you so much for sharing with us today the work you do. I have one more question for you. What do you wish more people knew about childhood cancer?
Oh, I have a long list, but I have a very long list. But I love the work I get to do at CCRF, and I have seen the impact that funding can provide. And I'm here because people believed in research financially. And $5 matters, $50,000 matters. And I wish people knew just how underfunded childhood cancer research is and continues to be, and the opportunity that is out there to make a difference. I'm here because of childhood cancer research and people who believed in funding long before I was diagnosed, and I want that to continue for other kids. So the group of survivors, we can continue to grow this really special group and be able to support them.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's so important, and I believe in the work we do too. And we're so grateful to have you, and I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you so much, Katrina. And I'm going to let you get back to what you're doing and people interested in buying research through CCRF. Also, before we go, be sure to read more of her inspiring story by visiting the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Come see our next episode. Bye-bye.